This is the Louie Tee Network.
Louie Tee Live. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie Tee? Welcome to a special edition of Louie Tee Live. I, of course, am your man, Louie Tee, here to talk about the NFL free agency period. Got underway yesterday, and so wanted to kind of allow all of the moves to take place and let everything kind of sink in. You know, when things first happen, we tend to jump straight in and we want to talk about it right away. But sometimes things need a little bit of time to kind of develop. And I wanted to let that kind of happen, let everybody kind of react to some of the things that happen. And then I want to jump in and talk about some of the moves that transpired in day one of free agency. You know, the first day, two or 3 days or so are usually the most crazy and hectic. A lot of moves being made. A lot of the big-time names coming off of the board in terms of guys looking to cash in free agency, and that's what it's all about, guys looking to get paid. And so you're going to see a lot of the bigger names in free agency come off the board in the first few days, and we saw a lot of that in day number one. You're going to continue to see that in day two and into day three, and then things will kind of settle in, and the guys that are waiting for the market to kind of set itself, maybe a guy or here or two to get a contract to kind of set their market, and then you'll see some of those guys start to sign contracts and deals, and the rest of the dominoes will fall. Like in the case of the running back position, no running backs have been signed yet. They're probably all waiting on Adrian Peterson, and then once he gets a deal, then maybe that will set the market for those guys, and then they'll get deals. So we'll see how that all shakes out. But let's talk about day one of free agency. We'll do it by a division and teams. We'll go through each and every single team in the league, talk about the moves that they made and the transactions. We had a trade, a big one, and that I think is a domino that will allow another domino to fall. We'll talk about that when we get there. So let's start in the AFC East, and we start with the Buffalo Bills. They signed Micah Hyde, and a guy that I think is one of the most versatile secondary members in this league. He's a Swiss Army knife, had been for the Green Bay Packers since being drafted in 2013, can return punts, can play the slot, can play safety, strong and free. You can blitz him. Made one of the most memorable plays in the playoff game against the Cowboys last year when he picked off Dak Prescott trying to throw a bubble screen or a hitch. So Micah Hyde, to me, very versatile football player. 5 years, $32.5 million, 14 of it guaranteed. Bills looking to revamp that defense in 2017. They also signed a couple of fullbacks in Patrick DeMarco from the Atlanta Falcons and a two-time Pro Bowl fullback Mike Tolbert from the Carolina Panthers. So they're trying to fortify that position. We'll see what happens there. And also Stephen Hauschka from the Seattle Seahawks, a guy that kind of struggled a little bit last year, but is a really good kicker in this league. Bills taking a look at him, and there'll be competition in camp, I'm assuming, and he'll be maybe the front runner for that job in Buffalo. You go to the Miami Dolphins. They were a little active in day one of free agency as well. They re-signed Andre Branch. Also re-signed Rashard Jones. Andre Branch deal is 3 years, $27 million for a guy that can play the run a little bit, get after the quarterback, and be a little bit of a versatile defender for them there. And then Kenny Stills was their big signing, re-signing their own. And this is a big free agency period for the Dolphins, because a lot of times the Dolphins will go out in free agency and look to sign other players from teams outside of their own. This time they were taking care, and that's a sign of a team that's starting to put things together when you're starting to re-sign your own and not really worried about chasing free agents out on the market per se. Kenny Stills, 4 years, $32 million. So you're talking about $8 per year, $20 million of it guaranteed. That's a large portion of that guaranteed. So instead of them going the more money per year route, because a lot of these receivers are looking to get $10, $11 million per year, he says, I'll take less money per year, but I want more of it up front. So he's going to get $20 million guaranteed as Kenny Stills. That's a good deal for Kenny Stills. New England Patriots, normally not as busy this time of the year, but it's a really big offseason for them, because they're kind of in transition, trying to figure out how they're going to put their team in a position to be successful for years to come, with or without Tom Brady. And so the Jimmy Garoppolo situation is very intriguing. What are they going to do there? Are they going to trade him? Are they going to hold on to him? Another situation, they are trying to go after Brandon Cooks a little bit earlier in the offseason. They're trying. It seems like they're trying to still get that done. And this move here that really caught a lot of people off guard may be a precursor to that. Stephon Gilmore getting signed by the New England Patriots. Deal hasn't really yet been fully consummated, but I think it's on the verge of being done. And that's a big move because they normally don't sign top of the market free agents. They're going to have to pay him big time money, probably the most of any cornerback in this free agent market when it's all said and done. So that's a big move. But what that says to me is maybe they're thinking about potentially moving the Super Bowl hero from a couple of years ago, Malcolm Butler, and maybe trading him to the Saints and throwing him into a package that will allow them to acquire Brandon Cooks. We'll see what they decide to do, but it's very interesting to see what the Patriots decide to do with that situation. They also re-signed Alan Branch, which is a move that they would generally make in a year, 2 years, $12 million for a guy that is solid along that defensive line. And they also re-signed one of their own in the secondary, Daron Harmon, will be back with the Patriots as well. They lose a couple of free agents. We'll talk about that a little bit later on as we get to those teams, but they make sure they take care of a couple of guys that help them during their Super Bowl run. Right now, a big free agent looming out there for them is Dante Hightower. Will he come back to New England? Will he move on? We'll see what happens with free agency, but with that situation with the Patriots, and they're a team worth watching because if they make a couple of moves, they could be as dangerous as they've ever been, and that's not a good thing for anyone in the AFC conference. You go to the AFC North, Baltimore Ravens. I thought they were one of the big winners of day one of free agency. They retained the services of one of the best young nose tackles in football in Brandon Williams. 5 years, $54 million makes him the most highest paid defensive tackle in the National Football League, 27.5 of that guaranteed. So that's big money for a big man in Brandon Williams. Tony Jefferson had an opportunity to get more money from the Cleveland Browns. Bigger offer was on the table, decided to turn it down to play for the Ravens, give himself a better opportunity to win. 4 years, $36 million for Tony Jefferson. It's a big get for the Ravens. This is a safety that I think is one of those new generation safeties, a guy that can play both free and strong and cover over the slot. I think Tony Jefferson is a big-time get for the Baltimore Ravens. And also Danny Woodhead, a new signee, coming off of another ACL that's going to be close and worth watching. See if he's back to being the old Danny Woodhead. 3-year deal. Terms of the deal in terms of money not disclosed at this time, but Danny Woodhead, a big-time playmaker out of the backfield. If he's healthy, we'll see what happens with Danny Woodhead. Cincinnati taking care of their own with Drake Kirkpatrick, 5-year, $52 million deal, 52.5 to be exact. Brandon LaFell, also 2-year, $10 million deal to remain a Cincinnati Bengal, but they did allow 2 of their guys to walk, in Andrew Whitworth and also another big-time offensive lineman in Kevin Zeitler, who stays in the division but moves on to another team within the division. Speaking of which, let's go to the Cleveland Browns, who were very active as well in day one of free agency, looking to fortify the offensive line, looking to revamp this roster and turn it over and start to really develop. They got a whole bunch of draft picks. Now they want to go out and kind of supplement their roster with the free agency period. Kevin Zeitler just spoke of him, 5 years, $60 million deal to now become a Cleveland Brown. Kenny Britt, 4 years, $32.5 million to be a big-time receiver for them. Went over 1,000 yards with that whole cluster of mess out in Los Angeles last year at quarterback. So he's a guy that they feel like can come in and help them at the receiver position. J.C. Treader, a center that was a backup fixture in Green Bay, getting an opportunity to potentially start in Cleveland. 3 years, $16.75 million, 4.5 of that guaranteed. Marcus Martin, another backup offensive lineman, coming from San Francisco as a center, probably can play all 3 interior positions, also was signed. And then the big blockbuster trade of the day, the Cleveland Browns trade for Brock Osweiler, but that wasn't the centerpiece of that deal. At least it wasn't for the Browns. They were worried about getting that 4th round pick in this year's, or sending that 4th round pick in this year's draft to the Houston Texans. And so they trade for Brock Osweiler, but they were really worried about getting the picks in return. They get a second-round pick in next year's draft in 2018 and a sixth-round pick in this year's draft. So they're stockpiling picks in a very deep draft class this year and potentially putting themselves in a position to move some picks or take more players in next year's draft. So they weren't really worried about Brock Osweiler. He wasn't the centerpiece of this deal. Those picks were, as they get Brock Osweiler in two future draft picks, one in this year's draft, one in next year's draft. The Pittsburgh Steelers doing what the Pittsburgh Steelers do, taking care of their own. For them in free agency, it's not a big deal to go out and get other players from other teams, but to make sure that they retain their own. They've already done that this year by signing their big-time all-pro wide receiver in Antonio Brown already. They've already franchise tagged their all-world running back in Le'Veon Bell. They're going to retain the services of David Johnson, their tight end / H-back. He's going to remain on the roster. So is backup quarterback Landry Jones. So this is what they do. They don't go out and spend money frivolously unless it's a guy that they really pinpoint and target as someone that can help them, like last year they did with Ladarius Green. For the most part, they stay in-house. They don't spend a lot of money in free agency, and that's what you're seeing from the Steelers, taking care of a couple of their guys and re-signing them. You go to the AFC South, a lot of movement in this division, as this division usually has a lot of high turnover. Texans talked about the big trade of the day, Brock Osweiler moving on. The biggest thing you can do as a franchise is admit you made a mistake. They made a mistake with Brock Osweiler last year. They're moving on from that mistake. Their owner made no qualms and literally made no bones about it, mixed no words, said, look, we need to fix the quarterback position or heads are going to roll. So they go out and they take the first step in doing so by getting rid of Brock Osweiler. We'll see what that means. I think they're really heavily involved in the Tony Romo sweepstakes. I'd be shocked if he doesn't end up in Houston now after this deal was done. They trade away a 2018 second-round pick in addition to a 2017 sixth-round pick, and they give up Brock Osweiler, which was the big probably coup for them, is getting rid of that nasty contract, dumping a guy that was dead weight in their organization and moving on from him. And they get a 2017 fourth-rounder in a very deep draft class in exchange for all of that. So they really wanted to move on from Brock Osweiler, clear up some cap space, and now give them an opportunity to probably go after a quarterback like a Tony Romo in free agency. Indianapolis Colts, they re-signed Jack Doyle, their tight end. And it was funny, I was talking to a Colts fan, he said, never knew that Jack Doyle would be our best tight end on our roster, but it turned out to be the case. He was the most reliable last season. They ship out one of their own tight ends in Dwayne Allen, to the New England Patriots for a sixth-round pick and re-signed Jack Doyle. So it's amazing. They had three tight ends all at once, Coby Fleener, Jack Doyle, and Dwayne Allen, and the last man standing turns out to be Jack Doyle. Who knew? 3 years, $19 million for Jack Doyle. And then Barkevious Mingo, a really low-key signing here, a guy that's still looking to hang around in this league after being a first-round pick and not living up to the hype, is now an Indianapolis Colt being signed away from the New England Patriots. Jacksonville, extremely busy, as they always are this time of the year. I always ask myself, where is this money coming from? But I guess when you don't invest heavily in a quarterback and don't have a lot of money tied into that position, you can continue to spend, and that's what the Jacksonville Jaguars continue to do. Calais Campbell, big-time free agent fish out there. 4 years, $60 million to come in and help them continue to reshape that defensive line. That's a big-time signing for them there. I think the biggest signing of the day for any team, A.J. Boye, 5 years, $67.5 million, 44 of it going to be spread out over the first 3 years. So this is a huge contract for one of the most young, talented cornerbacks in all of the National Football League. That's a big-time signing for them there. They also go ahead and continue to fortify the secondary by signing away Dallas Cowboys ex-safety, Barry Church, 4 years, around $24 million or so. So you're talking about 6 years, or $6 million per for Barry Church to continue to revamp the secondary. Leonte McCree from the Buffalo Bills, the special teams guy, a little bit of depth, also being signed. And then Patrick Omame, another guy that this is a re-signee here. Offensive lineman, gives them some depth along their offensive line. So Jacksonville extremely busy in day one, and I don't think they're done. I look for the Jaguars to continue to be players in free agency, and this is when they do a lot of their damage here. they continue to spend money in free agency and try to get better as a football team. Tennessee Titans also looking to get better as a football team. They signed Logan Ryan away from the New England Patriots, 3 years, $30 million for a guy that has played some good football for the Patriots. One of the best tackling corners in the league gets a big deal, 3 years, $30 million to see if he can go out and be what he was for the New England Patriots for the Tennessee Titans. Also, again, just like the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Tennessee Titans looking to help fortify their offensive line, signed Jonathan Cyprien away from the Jacksonville Jaguars. His deal to be announced, so deal not disclosed, but he's going to be a Tennessee Titan. And so teams, it's funny because a lot of times what you'll see and find with teams in the division is they'll poach away a player from another team in the division. You see that guy a lot, you know what he's capable of, and you like what you've seen over the years, and maybe he's kicked your ass, and so you feel like, hey, I can not only go get us a good football player, but I can also cripple that team by getting a good player from their roster and putting it onto mine. So that's what you see there. And the Titans also re-signed Carl Klug, one of their own players, and he's been a fixture along that defensive line for quite some time. He's going to continue to be in Tennessee. You go to the AFC West, Denver getting busy early by signing Ronald Leary away from the Dallas Cowboys, 4 years, $35 million, $20 million of it guaranteed to help continue to get better up front. They struggled up front last year, and they're looking to fortify that position. If you're going to have a guy like potentially like Tony Romo as your quarterback, going to have to protect him. They need to run the football better. Ronald Leary, a guy that can help them do that as well. So that's a signing that the Broncos desperately needed. The Kansas City Chiefs, not busy in terms of signing anyone. We know about some of the moves they've made already, releasing Jamal Charles, signing Eric Berry to a long-term deal, but they were not active in day one of free agency. But the Chargers were signing ex-Denver Bronco offensive lineman Russell Okung to a 4-year, $53 million deal, $13.25 million of that guaranteed dollars for a guy that's going to try to help them solidify their offensive line. We know they've had a lot of turnover, a lot of problems up front protecting Phillip Rivers. Maybe Russell Okung can stay healthy and come out and help them do that in Los Angeles, with the Chargers. That's something we all have to get used to with the Chargers, but we'll see if Russell Okung is the answer at left tackle for the Los Angeles Chargers. And Jaleel Adai is a guy that I really like out in San Diego. So do the Chargers, 4 years, $22 million to retain his services at the safety position. So Jaleel Adai going to remain a Los Angeles Charger with a 4-year, $22 million deal. The Oakland Raiders, surprisingly, not busy in the first day, but this is Reggie McKenzie's MO, their general manager, doesn't like to spend. Even though the Raiders have a ton of money available, he's still got to re-sign some of his own players. Khalil Mack's deal is coming up here in a little bit. So is their quarterback in Derek Carr. So I think they want to make sure they're smart about what they do. He's always been a bargain bin guy, doesn't like to spend a ton of money. So last year they spent some money on offensive linemen. This year they're kind of taking a wait-and-see approach. They're going to get busy eventually, but they're going to let all that kind of money early on in free agency dry up, and then they're going to start attacking some of the guys that are left behind. So no first day action for the Oakland Raiders. We'll see what they do in day 2 and 3 of free agency. NFC East, as we shift over from the AFC to the NFC, Dallas Cowboys make no moves in the first day. The big story for them, Tony Romo initially looked like he was going to be released. They hold on to him and now are dangling him out there like a piece of meat. Someone's going to give up something they believe, and they think that that team is probably going to be the Houston Texans after they made the move to get rid of Brock Osweiler yesterday. I think the Cowboys are focusing on moving him to the AFC, which will get him away from them and also allow them to coop some compensation for Tony Romo on the way out of the door. So we'll see what happens with that situation. We're all watching that very closely. The New York Giants, 2 years, $12 million for Brandon Marshall. That was the only move that they made. We know that they already franchise tagged Jason Pierre-Paul. So they weren't extremely busy, but they did go out and get a receiver to replace Victor Cruz on their football team. Brandon Marshall coming in as a veteran, big target, will give Eli Manning another guy to get the football to in that Giants offense. Philadelphia Eagles, extremely busy in day number 1. They didn't have any receivers last year, so they needed to fortify that position for their young, budding star at the quarterback position in Carson Wentz, and that's what they did in day 1. Guys couldn't separate last year. They get 2 guys that separated 2 different ways. Alshon Jeffrey, 1 year, $14 million prove-it deal. So he's going to bet on himself and try to hit the market again next year. And so they had trouble having receivers separate. He separates with size. You go to Torrey Smith, 3 years, $15 million. He separates with speed, a guy that struggled to assimilate himself in San Francisco with that mess they had going on out there. He's gonna get an opportunity to play with a big arm quarterback that can get him the football down the field. Chance Warmack, 1 year, $1.51 million deal to come in and help with some depth along the offensive line. And Najee Good, a re-signee of the Philadelphia Eagles at the linebacker position in day number 1. Washington Redskins, a whole bunch of turmoil there. Another big storyline in day 1 of free agency. They finally fired their general manager, Scott McCloughan. The writing was on the wall there that a separation was coming and a divorce was imminent, and it finally happened in day 1 of free agency. Redskins fire Scott McCloughan. It's a whole mess in Washington right now, but what they did do in free agency in day 1 was sign a safety in DJ Swearinger. 3 years, $13.5 million, $6 million of it guaranteed. Vernon Davis is a re-signee there, 3 years, $15 million for a tight end that rejuvenated his career last year in the nation's capital. And Terrell McClain, ex-Dallas Cowboys defensive tackle, gets a 4-year, $21 million deal to become a Washington Redskin. Redskins were also having a meeting with Terrell Pryor, a free agent out of Cleveland. That would be a big get for the Redskins, but I don't see that happening. I think he's going to want a little bit more money than they're willing to spend on that position, but we'll see what happens with him as we move on in the NFC. The Chicago Bears make a big splash in day 1 of free agency. They released Jay Cutler because of the next move that we're going to talk about, and we knew that Jay Cutler was probably going to be on the outs in Chicago. Well, they felt comfortable doing so because they go out and get free agent quarterback Mike Glennon from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 3 years, $43.5 million, 19 of it guaranteed. They're really going out on a limb here with a guy that doesn't have a lot of experience. I like Mike Glennon a lot, and I like that he's getting an opportunity to prove himself in Chicago. Now they need to make sure they surround him with weapons. Speaking of which, they go out and do some of that in day 1, going out and getting Dolphins tight end Deion Sims in day 1. A guy that's a big body guy that can catch the football and block in the run game. Also go out and get Pittsburgh Steelers ex-wide receiver Marcus Wheaton. So that's another target for him to get the football to in a similar body type of an Eddie Royal. We'll see how Marcus Wheaton fits into that offense. And also Quentin Depps to come over and help solidify the safety position. He's going to come over from Houston and help them do that. He gets a deal out in Chicago. So Bears extremely active. Their GM, Ryan Pace, extremely active in day 1 of free agency. We'll see what happens as the Bears continue to turn over the roster and try to get better as a football team. Detroit Lions signed Ricky Wagner to a deal reportedly $9 million per year. The terms of the deal haven't been released, but we're probably looking somewhere around that 5-year, $45, $46, $47 million neighborhood for a right tackle. They move on from Riley Reef, sign Ricky Wagner. We'll see how that goes for them. They also get a linebacker to help them. They released DeAndre Levy in the first day of free agency, and they go out and get Paul Warrilow from the Atlanta Falcons. So they're looking to start to get a little bit younger at the linebacker position by going out and getting a guy like Paul Warrilow at that position, and probably going to attack that position further in free agency or the draft as we continue on in the offseason. Green Bay Packers doing what the Green Bay Packers do. They're normally not big free agency players. They take care of their own, and they usually build through the draft, and that's what they continue to do. Re-signing Nick Perry, their outside linebacker, to a 5-year, $60 million deal. $18.5 million of it guaranteed dollars, so he's going to remain a Green Bay Packer. They lose Micah Hyde, but they're going to continue to work with some of the guys that they have. Eddie Lacy's out there. They'd love to have him back. Julius Pepper says he would like to return for a 16th NFL season, so he's another guy that they may bring back as well. We'll see what happens with the Green Bay Packers. Minnesota Vikings, much like the Packers, usually don't do a lot in free agency. They're really big on building through the draft, but they did have issues up front along that offensive line. So they go out and they lose out on the guy that they really wanted as an initial offensive lineman. So they go and they settle for Riley Reef as a backup plan. And the deal to be announced, but Riley Reef is going to be a Minnesota Viking, poaching him away from a divisional rival in the Detroit Lions, making him their starting right tackle. NFC South, Atlanta Falcons, Matt Schaub going to be re-signed, as well as Levine Toilolo, a big target at the tight end position, as well as a big time blocker in the run game. So the Falcons not doing much, releasing a defensive lineman and signing another too. So Falcons not really making many waves here early in free agency, just kind of looking to kind of tread water as free agency gets underway. Carolina Panthers, again, not one of these teams that's usually extremely active in free agency. They re-signed Charles Johnson to a 2-year, $9.5 million deal. Also re-signed Fozzie Whitaker, but they do wrestle away Russell Shepard from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as they lose one of their own receivers, and we'll talk about that. A lot of intra-divisional swapping in this particular division, as you see with many of these divisions, teams being very comfortable with taking a player away that they've seen quite a bit over the last few years. The Carolina Panthers do that with Russell Shepard, getting him from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. New Orleans Saints, I've always talked about them with Drew Brees being a smaller quarterback, always wanted to make sure they keep their guard position rock solid. They go out and get Larry Warford from the Detroit Lions and make him a New Orleans Saints. Deal isn't out right now. The terms of that deal haven't been disclosed, but he is going to be a New Orleans Saint. They also re-signed Nick Fairley, who they basically signed to a 1-year prove-it deal last year, and he proved it, and they reward him with a 4-year, $30 million deal. They also signed Ted Ginn Jr. away from the Carolina Panthers. Terms of that deal not disclosed quite yet, but again, wrestling away a player from a divisional rival is what we see a lot of teams do, and in this particular division, we saw a lot of that. And they go back to the well once again, signing A.J. Klein away from the Carolina Panthers, 4-year, $24 million deal. It's really a 3-year, $15 million deal in effect, because the final year of the deal, which is worth $9 million, can be voided if he's not on the team after the last day of the league year in that last year of the deal. So by 2020, if he's not on the roster as we go into the 2021 season, then he won't be paid that final $9 million, and I'm pretty sure the Saints will get rid of him by then. So it's really, in effect, a 3-year, $15 million deal for A.J. Klein. So again, going to the Carolina Panthers well and trying to run it dry. Saints active in day number 1 of free agency. And again, another cloud hovering over that team. Will they hold on to Brandon Cooks, or will they trade him? Stay tuned for that as well. Tampa Bay Buccaneers very active in day 1 of free agency, going to the Washington Redskins store and shopping frivolously as they go out and get Deshaun Jackson, 3 years, $35 million. That's a big get for them. They didn't have another target opposite of Mike Evans in Tampa Bay. So they swap out one Jackson for another. V-Jax no longer a fixture in Tampa Bay. Deshaun Jackson coming to town to be explosive and help that offense along. And also, they sign away from the Washington Redskins defensive tackle Chris Baker, 3 years. The terms of that deal not disclosed in terms of the money, but Chris Baker, a guy that's going to give them a lot of energy in that locker room, also be very boisterous, but also be physical up front and get after the quarterback a little bit. He's a guy that can play at that defensive tackle position, be a little versatile for you along that defensive line, move around a little bit, do some things. So Chris Baker also becoming a Tampa Bay Buccaneer in day 1 of free agency. You go to the NFC West. Arizona Cardinals lose one of their safeties in Tony Jefferson. They go out and get a safety in Antoine Bethea, 3 years. Terms of the deal not disclosed, but it's going to be a 3-year contract for the veteran safety as he moves from the San Francisco 49ers again. Another team poaching away another free agent from a team within the division. He's going to be an Arizona Cardinal. A.Q. Shipley re-signed by the Cardinals. Terms of that deal undisclosed as well. Los Angeles Rams, they were active in day 1 of free agency. If you're going to get a new coach, you're going to try to protect your young quarterback, you need to protect him and give him some weapons. They did both of those things in day 1, signing Andrew Whitworth from the Cincinnati Bengals to a 3-year, $36 million deal, $15 million of it guaranteed. So that's a big move for them, getting a left tackle. That's at least going to be a Band-Aid for them for the next couple of years at worst. Robert Woods coming in from the Buffalo Bills, 5 years, $39 million for what was a number 2 receiver. Maybe he's coming in looking to do the same in Los Angeles, but they lose Kenny Britt. They go out and get Robert Woods. We'll see if that's an even exchange or not when it's all said and done. And they also get a backup quarterback to come in and compete in Aaron Murray from the Philadelphia Eagles, a guy that they'll probably look to develop as a backup quarterback for them moving forward. And then the San Francisco 49ers, without a doubt, the most active team in day one of free agency. You know, this is a roster that is going to have a lot of turnover, new head coach, new general manager, lot of turnover is to come in San Francisco, and it's needed in that franchise right now. And you can see that this is a team not messing around. They're looking to revamp this roster and make it in the image of the head coach and general manager. Pierre Garçon, one of their big signees in first day of free agency, 5 years, $47.5 million, $20 million of it guaranteed dollars. Brian Hoyer, 2-year, $12 million deal, can get upwards of $18 million with incentives and bonuses if he performs. That's a guy that's probably going to be their starter day one, and they're still not done at the quarterback position. Mark my words there. Malcolm Smith, 5 years, $26.5 million. They wrestle him away from another team out in the Bay Area from the Raiders. And so he's going to help come over and try to continue to revamp that defense that was once one of the best in the league. Not as much right now. They're looking to change the culture out there. Malcolm Smith coming in 5 years, $26.5 million. Marquise Goodwin, they lose to Torrey Smith, a big play threat down the field to stretch the field. Marquise Goodwin going to come in and do exactly that at a fraction of the cost. So they go and get a guy that can run really, really fast in a straight line, and Marquise Goodwin to come give them a big-time target down the field. Kyle Juszczyk, a really good, solid Swiss Army knife at the fullback position from the Baltimore Ravens. They signed him. He can come in, he can run it, he can catch it, he can block, he can do a little bit of everything, and they're going to have him be out there. That he may be their new Bruce Miller in their offense. We'll see how they decide to use Kyle Juszczyk. Robbie Gould going to have an opportunity to compete for the kicking job out there. They love veteran kickers in San Francisco. Phil the Boot was out there for the last few years. Now Robbie Gould, an aging kicker, is going to have an opportunity to compete for that job out there this year. And Logan Paulson, a guy that is very familiar with the Kyle Shanahan offense, a tight end that is one of the better run-blocking tight ends in the league, can catch it a little bit. Comfortable with Kyle Shanahan. He's comfortable with Logan Paulson from his Washington Redskin days. He's coming along for the ride in San Francisco as they were the most active team in day one of free agency, and they're not done, not by a long shot. There will be more signings in San Francisco to come in free agency. Seattle Seahawks, they don't do anything in day one, but they're going to be active. They're sniffing around the running back market right now. Adrian Peterson is a possibility. Jamal Charles is a possibility. All of those guys have been linked to Seattle. So we'll see what happens, but they're definitely in the market for a running back as free agency gets underway. So that's day one of free agency. Guys out moving around, making dollars. We'll see what happens in day two and day three as the market starts to settle in, and some of these other teams that have waited to see how the market would shake out start to get involved in free agency as well. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the Lab Room. I'm your man, Louie Tee. Come back and join me for more free agency coverage. We're changing the game one live feed at a time. I will see you guys a little bit later on. Have a good one.